So when I'm looking at an area that's blanketed in mountain laurel, when I can see through that and I can see that there's some openings in it, like, here's an area where there doesn't seem to be a lot of laurel, and it's following a drainage, and it's a nice opening, which creates a great funnel. So I'll look for these openings in the sea of laurel, which turn into natural funnels for these deer too. You'll see that it's like just peppered with sign, because the deer will use that as like a main artery to get around.
They feel safe in there, and it's so difficult to access to get in there. I remember talking to you about this a few years ago, and you told me a lot of stuff that I've used since then to learn some areas that I have with heavy mountain laurel.
I was like, well, if I throw a mic on, then I can help others the way that these people have all helped me.
Born in the heart of the Pennsylvania deer camp, with the help of experts, friends, and local legends, we bring you valuable knowledge and powerful stories for your hunting adventures. Welcome to the East Meets West Hunt Podcast with your host, Bo Martonic.
All right, we're back. Another episode of the East Meets West Hunt Podcast. And today I have on a friend of mine that I guess we met now 2 or 3 years ago, Pat Burns.
Yeah, what's up, man? How are you, Bo?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. Good. It's funny. It's funny that Huntstock. There's a picture that somebody got that day of you like looking at one of the sets of sheds I got out back there, and I'm like, I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, such a good photo too. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was. Oh, I forgot about that photo actually. If you have it, you'll have to send me that, because I remember that was Huntstock, New York, the year that you guys had it there, and I had met you through setting up the booth through Huntstock and kind of getting ready for the seminar stuff and everything, and when I remember when you sat down with these giant set of sheds and started talking to me, I was just like, my jaw, I don't think, closed the entire time.
Yeah, they're beasts. They're beasts. I eventually got them, but yeah.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. Which I guess before we even get into it, I'll bring up that Huntstock, Massachusetts here. I'll be there, so I'll be hanging out with you in person August 7th through 9th. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're excited to have you come to that one. That's our like flagship place, right? We've had it there this will be our 5th year. So it's like steadily grown. It's kind of the centerpiece of the whole festival that we're doing, which we're doing it around the country. We have one in Wisconsin, as you know, this year as well with THP. And, but yeah, the Massachusetts one is just like, it just feels like home, man. You're going to love it. Like New York was cool, but you'll get it. It's an entirely different vibe up there.
I'm excited for it. I talked about it with a gentleman I had on the podcast back in March who's from Vermont, and we were talking about Lyme disease and some different things there. And he was from Pennsylvania and moved to the Northeast. Pennsylvania's still the Northeast, but like that true kind of Northeast has a different vibe typically from hunting styles to just like everything, and it's really cool. I enjoyed that component. I felt like I was at a different, and also Huntstock's just different because it's not like a stuffy trade show per se. It's more like a festival, I would kind of put it. How would you describe Huntstock?
Yeah,
I guess
I would say it's a outdoor show for outdoorsmen, man. Like we're used to being outside. Like none of us want to be crammed up in a building. Like I hate it. I hate walking around on concrete. I hate being closed in by walls. So, that's kind of the whole idea of it, is to have it be in the open air, have it be outdoors where we all want to be. You want to feel the breeze and connect with people like that. So the Massachusetts one, we do it on this gorgeous farm that's in the middle of nowhere. And, it's just great, man. It's like rain, snow, or shine. We do it. We've been lucky enough that we haven't got like friggin' monsooned out yet, but it's just nice. It's nice to be outside. It feels authentic. It just feels like a giant deer camp. Like it really does. Like there's people that probably near where you'll be set up, unless you're inside. I haven't seen where Pat has you yet, but we have a whole place called like podcast row or podcast alley, and there's a bunch of the content creators are all lined up in this like alleyway between one of our stages and the indoor stage, and it just kind of funnels the traffic through there. And a bunch of the guys that set up there, a few of them set up like their outfitter tents for their bear camps in Maine and stuff like that. So as you're going through there and there's people doing podcasts and stuff like that, some of them, like, you'll sit down and it's like you're outside their camp having a cup of coffee and like they're doing the podcast like that. And then across the way is another one. So it's just a different vibe, man. It's great. And it's outside. So it just feels good.
That's a really cool idea there. Cause so I'll have a booth set up there, but pretty much it's just like I don't even know if I'll plan on bringing anything to sell. Mostly just I want to do podcasts while I'm there. So you guys had helped me line up some ones so I'll be interviewing Rick Labby, who will be there, Lanny Benoit, Jeff Doyle.
Awesome.
So like it'll be hopefully Jim Massett as well. We had talked with Joe Donito a little bit, and I think he was going to make that introduction there. So some legendary guys, from the Northeast, and you were actually supposed to be there, but you're so busy with helping out with actually making the whole thing run. We decided to do this one early.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, it's true. Once the thing gets kicked off, me and Pat are literally like zipping back and forth. You'll like just see flashes of us. Yeah, he's right. Where'd he go? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's good. Yeah, those are some legends, man. Jim Massett, man. I don't know if have you ever seen that legendary picture of him in the magazine? Like, he's got the buck on his shoulders, just like,
dude, so awesome. Cool.
So cool. And he was so young then. He's an older guy now, but his energy is just unmatched. It's really cool. And the dude got the dopest radio voice ever too. So that'll be a good one for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's also a thing I think I've realized, especially with some of those trackers in the Northeast, they've got a voice like that is,
the bear growl.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to listen to, and always good storytelling, which is a lost art. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a cool tradition in the Northeast here where we are. I grew up in Maine as well. And those Adirondack guys and a lot of the guys from Maine and all over the Northeast, there's like a deep rooted tradition in hunting here from the first settlers that came here and probably learned from the Native Americans on how to hunt. And I think it's spread out from there. So, although the Northeast is probably the most underrepresented community nationwide in hunting, you don't see any hunting shows on the Northeast. You don't see any products specific for the Northeast for the most part. That's part of the reason we started Huntstock. It was kind of like the underdog story, but there's a deep rooted tradition here, and it's cool and unique, especially with those tracker guys. Those guys are relentless and they do it hard. Like that's a hard way to do it. Just get on and try to chase them down for 12 miles in the snow. So.
Yeah, it's definitely really cool. So anyone that's listening to this, make sure you go over. It's worth the trip. If you're in Pennsylvania, it's not a terribly far drive. New York, a lot of listeners from the New York area and everything. Come on over to Westminster, Massachusetts, August 7th. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep, Westminster, Mass. Yeah,
Westminster, yep. Mass. Okay, so August 7th through 9th. Come check it out. I'll be doing a live podcast there. Not sure who the guest is going to be yet for the live podcast, but then also doing a speaking engagement. But beyond me, there's incredible. I mean, yeah, I'm probably the last one that you'd want to go see from the lineup of people that are there that are going to be speaking.
You'll be surprised, man. You got some fans out here. You'll be surprised.
I appreciate that. But just the guys that are going to be speaking there, there's just some legends. I'm looking forward to listening to it, and watching some of those seminars. So it'll be pretty cool to see.
Yep, awesome. And I don't know if Pat said he was going to give you a special code for that for your listeners too.
I was just
texted him. So we'll put it on the screen. It's right there. It's right there.
I think it's actually East meets West. It's either East meets West or Bow, but I think it's East meets West because I was looking. That's what I was looking for right before we started recording.
I was doing the same thing. I was just texting him like, bro, send the code. Where's the code? So
I
we can
think
make it be whatever it is. So if you want it to be East meets West, we'll do it East meets West and have
all
that be
right.
the go.
So that'll save you some money. So pre-register there over to huntstockevents.com, and yeah, let's hang out. It'll be a good time.
Good. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys there, man. It'll be great.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into a little bit about you, Pat. So we're talking about Huntstock and how I met you there, but and you were talking about growing up in Maine. Did you grow up hunting from a young age, or what's kind of your backstory there?
Yeah, I was kind of a transplant, right? So my father and grandfather, I grew up in Massachusetts, but my father and grandfather were both big hunters. They would go up to Maine all the time and do their traditional mecca to the big woods to go hunting up there yearly. And as a kid, I'd go up every now and then and do it. And then at like 13, I got transplanted from Boston to Maine. And then at that point, I started, kind of doing it a little more because now I'm in the woods all the time and I live in the woods and whatnot. So yeah, I started pretty early, probably about the same time most people do. And then I would say it faded away a little bit, like late teen years, and I didn't go as much. But then, once I moved to a little bit south of Maine and in New England later, I started like becoming obsessed with it again. So just taking little hikes here and there and just really trying to get it dialed in. So I think that's another reason that Huntstock's cool, is that we're really trying to carry on the tradition too. And I think that not sharing it with the next generation is horrible. Like if it wasn't for that, I think it saved me in a lot of ways. I think having that outlet was just huge. So yeah, I started when I was really young, kind of tooling around with it, but I started taking it seriously and becoming obsessed like later, in my 20s and 30s, I started really becoming obsessed with it.
What do you think made turn that switch for you that made you like really interested in like and working at it and wanting to get better? Because you said you had fallen off a little bit, which I think that happens to a lot of people in that time frame of like getting out like towards the end of high school or even in high school, and then some of the years after that in the early 20s. But what do you think? Yeah, give me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I for me, it was all surrounded around deer camp and family at first, right? And then, as I got older, I would go with my brother a couple times during the season, but I would still go out by myself and be honing in my skills. But what really flipped the switch for me was out scouting in, I don't know, like 2015 before the season, and I found just a monster set of sheds that were chewed up from the year before. And that was like the start of me sort of being obsessed, because I found the sheds and they were chewed. So I knew that deer was alive, and it was like nothing that I had ever seen before shed wise in the area. So it was like, holy crap, I got to try to see if I can get a picture of this thing or catch up to it or whatever. And that was the start of the story of that set of sheds that I showed you. And I eventually killed that buck, the electric buck that I named it. So I think that was really the switch for me. And it was such a long process of trying to catch up with him that it caused me to become obsessed, because it took me 2 years from finding those set of sheds to even get a picture of the deer, because the woods are big. It's like 10,000 acres. And then you cross the road and there's more land that goes to New York pretty much. So it was just a lot of work and just constant, like, all right, he's not here. Maybe he's over here. Let me get a camera here. And I just kept buying cameras and pushing it further and further and further. So I think that was the switch for me, was kind of picking up that set of massive sheds and just thinking like, I can't believe this thing even exists here. And how do I learn more about it? How do I make it happen? So
yeah, how do I actually get this mystical creature that I've got this antler in my hands during daylight hours in hunting season right here up close and personal? It's a daunting task. But I did, as we start going into that, but I did want to just give a comment to something that you had said there. That whole, like when you were younger, like getting into that, that deer camp, those family tradition side of it. Man, I think that is such a, and people are probably sick of me saying it, but like I'm so adamant on that being something that helps retain hunters just as much as opportunity to be in the woods. Because sometimes, say you don't find that shed or you don't see a deer for the first 3 times you're out, it can be for the first time without having a little bit of taste of some sort of success or getting that full experience. It can be difficult to retain those people and go through it. And I know for me, just being around hearing the stories of the older generations as a young kid, like had me fascinated by it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think it's important. And then, like you said, sometimes it's not, that switch for me was obsession at that point, but I still remember the first time, kind of hunting by myself. There'd be several times where I'd go with my dad or grandfather and I'd get dropped off on a logging road somewhere and they'd be like, sit here, don't move, stuff like that. But once I started kind of cruising on my own, and I remember the first time early morning that I like saw a group of deer on my own, and you're hearing something behind you and you're like, oh, it's another squirrel. Like, you're just a young kid, like whatever. When's lunch, and then all of a sudden you look and you see some, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It just, then you're in the game and you're like, okay, all right, this is real. This isn't, they're not just saying these things are out here. They're out here.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And so like, I guess we might as well, while we're on that topic of the sheds and, kind of that obsession, let's just kind of walk through that kind of in chronological a little bit about like finding those sheds. And you're saying you're out scouting a bunch and running trail cameras, trying to find that deer. Like, tell me a little bit about that, like what that taught you is trying to find it.
Yeah. It taught me a lot because, in the process, so every year that, hey, go sit down, buddy. Every year of searching for him and trying to get pictures and stuff, I was watching and listening to podcasts and videos and stuff and, employing every tactic that you learn, right? You're like, some stuff's good, some stuff's bad, try this. So what it taught me was to just keep going. So I was just relentless with finding the sheds, finding that first set of sheds. And then the next step for me was I got to get a picture of this thing somewhere. So then I started identifying every scrape I could within 500 yards of where I found the sheds, and nothing happened. So then I had to go 1,000 yards out from from that. And it just kept expanding until eventually 2 years later, I got one picture. And then at that point, to me, that's a new piece of the puzzle. So from there, I had to expand out. Like, that's a new circle now. So it's like, all right, from here, now I got to expand out 1,000 yards from here and find see which direction he's coming from, and then expand from there. And I kept doing that and repeating that process. And over time, it kind of led me to eventually where I was getting consistent pictures of him. That started off at night or at dusk, but then eventually led me right into his lair, but it took years and shed hunting in the off season and literally using my cameras in the off season as if it was during the season. So I'd go out after the snow had been down for a few days or a week after the season was over. Mm-hmm. And I would backtrack that deer in the snow. Like, if I happened to get a picture of him on one of my cameras, I would literally go there the next day and backtrack him in the snow, mark every bed, put up another camera, and just keep repeating that process over and over and over until I learned everything I possibly could about that specific deer. So the whole winter off season, I was hunting, probably scouting harder than you would during the season, because you don't want to disturb anything during the season. But off season, it's like, you're not trying to kill it. So I didn't care so much if you bumped deer or whatever, or your scent or anything like that. So I just kept repeating that process of being relentless and using technology and up late night with maps or, apps, looking at topography and just trying to figure out like where it could be, and then studying wind and historical data and trying to like overthinking too. So like part of it was overthinking. I remember for a while I'd be looking at the pictures I got. So say I had like 10 pictures at this point, and I'd mark them on a map, and I'd be like, all right, the wind was out of the east for 3 days. That must mean he came from here. And I'd circle that, and then I'd go over there and scout and then find nothing. And just, so like, it's a lot of just perseverance, really. I think deer hunting, and especially big bucks, it's a mind game. You have to like be in it, and you have to believe it can happen, and you have to not quit, because that's literally the only way. The only way you're going to get one of those ones you really want is you either get shit lucky, or you are going to grind it all the way until you make it happen, because it's easy to just fall off and quit and just say,
Yep.
I'll take this 4-pointer and keep going.
Do you feel like I'm interested to hear your opinion on this comment. So the more I've been doing this, and mostly from talking to other people. So like when I put on the scouting camp every year in the spring, I get to see a wide range of people that have been doing it for a really long time, specifically hunting big woods and or the mountains, like that type of terrain. And people are coming in from newbies to very experienced people. And what I've learned is a lot more of them know what to do, or like are a lot further along than they believe that, but it's having that confidence in that to be able to stick it out. Because I feel like you can have so many of the pieces of the puzzle together and have it figured out, but sometimes it still just takes a heck of a lot of time and like you were saying, persistence and perseverance to go through it.
Yeah, it does, man. You just have to keep going. That's it, man. That's it. Just keep going. That's the rule.
Yeah. So, when you were doing that, as far as, making those circles and things, did you end up finding, was he a ways away from that shed that you found? Was he actually?
It ended up being 5 miles.
Wow.
So he wintered in like an entirely different area that specific year, because, we've talked about it before. So where I hunt for the most part it's big woods, and there's a ton of mountain laurel, and there's a lot of huge oaks, fortunately, right? So essentially there's plenty of cover and plenty of food. So he didn't have to go too far from wherever the acorns are to eat and be safe. So it really was dependent on where the acorn crops were each year, and which ridges had acorns and which ones didn't, and which ones had pressure. But that particular year, he just happened to be on that remote little hill that was loaded with acorns that year and had plenty of cover. So it's just, there's nothing in the environment that I hunt that causes them to have to travel really far to get food, other than whether there's a crop or not, So yeah, after finding that, it was probably 5 miles between that shed and then other sets of sheds. So I ended up getting them in the middle. It was probably about 3 miles from where I found that first set of sheds to where I eventually killed them. But it was like a 5-mile circle journey of figuring out where he was. He was far away from his core that year.
Yeah. And once you found him there, I know you were saying that like with that type of environment, heavy mountain laurel, oaks all through it, and depending on the mass crop could shift. But once you found him, did you feel like he was in a much smaller area than you would have guessed?
Yeah,
originally?
The year I got him. Yep, absolutely. The year I ended up finally getting him, like everything, all of those puzzle pieces clicked together and made sense. Because before that, it was like I thought I had it, but I knew that I didn't. But yeah, it all made sense after, because as I just said, where I got him was a few miles away from where that shed was. And once I got into like his core, I would say it was probably 300 acres or something, was this area where he was constantly, I would get him a lot in daytime, like just in this area. Once again, it's thick stuff, and it would be tighter. Really, where I killed them was much tighter than that, but there was an area of probably 200-300 acres that I would get him on consistently in the middle of this 10,000 acre giant forest. He would constantly be in that one area. But what I learned is from that first set of sheds to some of the other sheds is that this central core was centralized. Like that's where he felt comfortable in daytime and was safe. And depending on wind direction, food, pressure, whatever, from that center, he might go north to go to this place need here, or he might go here. So as I was putting all those circles together and pieces of the puzzle and marking the scrapes, eventually it all whittled down to this central area. And then from there, it started branching out like like spokes on a wheel.
Yep.
He was always coming from this central area, going out this way, going out that way. So that central area, you have to get all those other pieces and realize, and then take those to the end of the road and realize there's nothing else after it. Like, all right, I got him here feeding, but I've never got him in this direction on any of the scrapes. And what it also did for me is chasing him is it taught me a lot about the area, but also just the deer habits in general there, including the does and everything else. So it was like a master class trying to, chase down this 11-and-a-half-year-old deer by the time I got him. Like he obviously knew those woods like the back of his hand and just had the best spot because that's why he lived so long,
Yeah, man, that is so wild to think of, a deer that old live. There was a deer that I chased. I should, looking back on it, I don't really know if I was ever totally in the game on him, but we'd find his sheds every year. But his winter range from where he was during a lot of hunting season was on a place that you couldn't necessarily hunt. But later, it took forever to learn that. Just thought I wasn't getting, pictures of him going through it. But that deer ended up dying of old age, and we figured he was 10 or 11 at that point. And I was like, man, you won the ultimate game there, buddy. Like there was a ton of people that were trying to hunt him, trying to find him, and it was just, do you feel like in those types of areas that you're hunting, are you dealing with pressure a bunch?
Oh yeah. There was pressure. There was other people that knew about him and had pictures of him as well. And then I had an instance where I had met a guy, and the guy was like, I don't know what's wrong with him per se, but he ended up posting online. He would post pictures of the deer online, but he would include the location. Hey, check out this buck that I got coming by this road, by this pond in this state forest. What his theory was with that was the more people that would go there and push the deer around, the better chance one of us would have of getting him.
Good intentions.
Thank you, bud. Thanks, bro. Which in turn turned into like everyone and their mother coming from different states to that area just on a whim. Like, oh, it could be real, could not be real. Let me at least go check. And that changed the pressure exponentially. And luckily, I had already had like couple thousand miles worth of scouting in a few years on them. And no one happened to get lucky in the meantime. And that stuff is just miserable anyway. So now I look at it and I joke with one of my buddies that hunts the area all the time. We'll see new people popping in the woods. And at this point, I'm just like, they're going to get burnt out in like 3 days. They're going to try it and they're going to say, get me the hell out of here. Let me go back to some easy stuff.
Yeah, it's that all of that is funny because there'll be like a select group of people that especially local to me and then a little bit outside of it that get mad about me doing podcasts and talking about hunting the big woods, like pressure is gonna go through the roof and all this stuff. And the thing that I've learned is there's very few people that will do it for more than a season or maybe 2 seasons if they're kind of going. And then the ones that stick around and get into it, they're probably good people that I'd enjoy being around anyways. But it's not I don't know. I could get shot in the foot with it, but
no, what it is the people that are willing to take that sort of information and just like take the easy way and not put in their own work to make something happen are also the people that are probably willing to give up easier and quit. You know what I mean? Like the guys that are really willing to put the work in want to put the work in on their own, under their own terms, and make it happen. You know, like nothing against guys that go to like outfitters in the Midwest and go pay $5,000 to go get dropped off at a tree stand and shoot one of the 40 deer that come by that they pay for based on the size of the antlers. But I want to like go out and either fail or win on my own merit and like my own hard work. So I think that, to your point, a lot of those guys that would stick around for more than 2 years and really bust their butt at it are the kind of guys that are going to do the work on their own and not just go off of a podcast that they hear from you or a nugget of information and turn that into like, I'm going to be here now. Now I got the spot. And
yeah,
because I've met some great guys too in my journey chasing that deer in the woods that came in for whatever reason. And they're super hardcore guys and they're friends now and they bust their butt. And then there's a mutual respect too. Cause then once they figured out like, oh, you're in here. All right. Let me not be in here because one, I know that your ass got this place covered. And two, it's just going to be like, we're just going to end up in the same spots because once you whittle the woods down and you get rid of all the dead space, good hunters will end up in the same spots pretty quickly in a huge patch of woods.
Yep.
We're going to find those edges. We're going to find the scrapes, the terrain features, drainages, and we're going to be like up each other's friggin' alley, you know?
It was a few years ago now, but there was a buck. I went to an area that I had hunted, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. Went back there scouting, found some nice sheds, and I was like, man, the fact I was finding there was a bunch of old sheds, I was like, I don't think there's really anybody in here. And it was similar to a place that, you know, to the types of places that I know that you hunt, that was like a ton of mountain laurel and an in rhododendron. So I was like finding this stuff in there, threw a camera in. I just let it soak all year. I never went back in there, pulled it in the spring, and I had like one picture of this like absolute magnum. And I was like, oh, I got to figure out where he's coming from during the rut. So I started going these different hills and expanding. Well, I ended up getting to the spot and I was like, man, I think I'm here. Well, then every spot I'd find, there'd be a camera, but it was always the same type of camera. And I was like, this is one guy looking for one big buck. I was like, I pretty much, you know, I was like, this guy kind of told me through seeing the way his cameras were that big buck was somewhere, excuse me, on this side hill in this laurel thicket. Thought I escaped all the cameras. I tried not to walk in front of cameras if I can see them. Well, apparently one caught me. And the guy sent me a message on Instagram, and it just so happens the guy that I know, and he's a really good hunter. And he's like, hey, you know, I'm like on this deer. He's like, you looking for this deer? I was like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. He's like, well, you're in the right spot, but you know, and he wasn't like telling me don't go there, but I was just like, after that point, I was like, he's obviously putting in a ton of work. I'm just like exploratory right now, trying to find it. I was like, I've got plenty of other spots I can go to, and I just kind of,
I've had experiences like that too. I've had experiences like that too, and it's a respect thing. It's the same thing for me. Like I have some other deer that are monsters in the area that I know a couple of my buddies have been on for years, and I'll joke with them and bust their balls now. Like after it's like 4 years of them not getting them, I'm like, hey bud, you want me to just take it over this year and like come there and get it done for you? And but there's a respect factor, man. Like I would never want to be that guy. Like it's your friend and you go in there and you're just sneaking around. You know, he's already got cameras in there and he's putting in work. And then now you're going in, putting a camera on the same scrape. And then you end up getting the deer and you're like, yeah, thanks to like, I just don't want to do that. So there's a respect thing. And it's, if you see someone that you respect, I mean, public land is public land and you're going to bump into people and cameras and you can't shy away from every interaction and just not hunt anywhere. Cause there's people everywhere, but when it ends up being someone you know is a diehard hunter who's really putting in a lot of work, I tend to just back off and go find somewhere else. There's plenty of woods.
Yeah, and like every situation's different. You know, I've run into it before where I was, you know, hunting a deer for a long time and intimately knew it. And same with this other person. And like we just end up like kind of clashing circles, you know, and like overlapping. And then it just became the point where we just communicate with each other. Like we were both
Yeah.
we're gonna hunt the deer, both had, you know, went after, but it's like let's communicate and try to help each other out so hopefully somebody you know ends up getting that deer.
Yeah, and that leads me into a good story. The deer right here that's behind me, this one that is another one of those ones that I chased for a few years, and I got a couple years worth of sheds off him before I got him. And I had a friend that I met in that same patch of woods who had pictures of him as well. And although I was on him and I was planning on hunting this same tree that I call the killer tree for that swamp, the next day, the day before I actually killed him, my buddy was hunting the other side of the swamp. So we'd hunt this same area and we'd go in together or talk to each other the night before. And, you know, we're like 1,000 yards away from each other, but it's this like long teardrop swamp. And I'd be on like one end here and he'd be like way over here. So you couldn't see each other or anything, but you just knew that the way the deer moved, like one of us would see something or you'd be I'm up high enough that I could see if deer were like on his side of the swamp heading that way and you'd give him a warning or whatever. And the day before I got this deer, he had sent me videos and stuff and he's like, bro, you should be in your stand. He's like, he's running back and forth right now. He's like on your side of the swamp, you know? And that ended up being a cool thing. I actually got a pair of those sheds right here. Look at this. Look at this beast right here. I don't know if I showed you these ones there, but
No, I didn't see those ones.
like, I mean, this is like 15-inch G2s, you know?
You know, it's
And then
funny when you see somebody say something about, you know, 15, 16-inch G2s, normally they mean like 8 or 9 inches, but that is like a true, just
No,
absolute giant.
I'm 6'2", so like, yeah.
Wow.
That's a super.
And then
Yeah,
the year that you killed him, he had that big drop tine.
Yeah, so it's crazy. He lost. I have a couple sets of sheds from him. He lost both of the brows and just turned it into a drop. It's so random. Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't have brows on that. The one when you killed him.
Well, he has brows here, but the one in the back, there's no brows on him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
the
what I'm
brows
looking at.
converted to a drop. Yes. And he was probably 7 or 8 years old too. You know.
Dude, and so for anyone that's listening and not being able to see it here, like give a little bit of a scale of like the size of that deer from like an inch perspective or something, just to give a little bit of an idea.
Yeah, these sheds are 164, I think they were, as an 8.
Good Lord.
Yeah. I forget what he scored back there with that. I forget what it was. It was close. It was like 150 somethings for this guy back here. I forget exactly
As
what
a
it was.
7
But
point.
yeah. Yeah, it's a 6 point with a drop.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the same thing. The G2s are huge on it. I mean, really, really long, decently wide. I think he has like a 19-inch inside spread, but good deer. But yeah, to your point about friends in the woods and sharing the space, me and that guy Nick like bumped into each other out there and then became cool. So as soon as I got the deer, he's one of the first dudes I called, and then he came and helped drag it. And you know, you just share that experience. You meet certain people through hunting, and they become your friends, and then your hunting buddies, and pretty soon, you guys are sharing in the love for it. You know, which is what it really is about. You know.
Oh, yeah, 100% is. How did it end up going down that? So like, give me the date, the time, kind of the story of that
November 4th is my day of all days. I killed the electric buck on November 4th. I killed that one on November 4th. I killed the one I killed this year, which is a monster, on November 4th. It's like it's my favorite day. I think Halloween is like the best time of year to be in the woods. As soon as Halloween hits in my area, it's good. That particular spot, I know that the first week where I sit in that swamp, like directly across from me, probably 100 yards, is what I call like a doe nest. There's a bunch of doe that bed over in the back corner of this swamp. And the matriarch doe there, I have enough cameras that I can like see how they interact, and I have them on all the scrapes, and I'll see the doe like beating each other up different times of the year, like to pee in the scrape. Like the matriarch doe will literally like smack the other one so they don't pee in the scrape because only she's peeing in the scrape, you know? But that first week in November there, that doe group or the main doe in that doe group would come into heat like every year for like 4 years straight. So every time there's acorns on this ridge and that swamp's active, I know those doe will be in there. And then I know that first week that doe is going to pop because every buck for miles is there. So if there's one that I want, I know that he's going to be there. So this particular day, and this is a spot that like where you park, I could get there in probably like a 20-minute walk if I beeline directly to it. But I go like way out and around to drop into it so I don't disturb anything. And it takes me like 45 minutes, 50 minutes. And a lot of it's like going up this ridge and around. So you have to pace yourself too so you don't get there all sweaty and whatnot. But yeah, I got there early. I knew that doe would be in heat. I knew that he was already in there chasing a doe the day before because my buddy had already dropped the dime on it and told me that that was the case, even though I was hunting there regardless. And yeah, just got up in the tree, and then sure enough, like clockwork, at a certain time, I start hearing stuff in the swamp, and they were hanging out for probably an hour before I actually got a shot at them. But he'd just be kind of chasing her here, there, watching her there, chasing other bucks off. So it was just like action-packed awesomeness. And then eventually he gave me like a 40-yard shot. But it's just that spot is one of those spots, man, that I've killed probably 3 good bucks out of there. And they say you can burn out a spot, but this particular spot, you could hunt there almost every day of the season, and you're not gonna burn it out because the way you enter it, you never have to disturb the area where the deer are actually in. Like it's like this steep ridge that comes down, and then there's a giant rock wall, and then you're into like just a swamp. And I never crossed the threshold of that rock wall, and neither do the deer for the most part. Sometimes they'll come off that ridge or go up it, but that little corridor and the way the wind blows is just, it's blowing into the back corner of this teardrop of the swamp. So I've sat there for 5 days straight and seen deer every single day and like never had an issue. And then had my buddy come in the next day and another buddy after that. And like I put people in that stand just to go kill stuff because it's so foolproof. And it's not often you can have a spot that's like set up that good and actually produces, you know?
I was gonna say it's so hard to find one of those like dynamite spots that things just actually work out, whether it be the wind or access or anything else for it to make sense.
This is one of those spots, man. It's just like it's got everything. So the terrain features all drop down into this swamp. So picture decently high ridges, you know, and they drop down to this deep swamp, but the swamp is shaped like a teardrop. And the teardrop, if you look at it on the map, would be in the southwest corner. So, well, yeah, actually the southeast corner of the swamp, which means a northwest wind, which is traditional in the Northeast, is going to push all that air to that corner. And where I set up at the bottom corner, like that, where that teardrop does this, I'm right here. So all of those bucks kind of cross from everywhere, and they want to get all the scent from that swamp. So they literally stand right in front of where the stand is to like scent check the entire area in front of them because the way that all the scent funnels right to that point.
Yep.
And so it makes it for me, as long as they don't come to this tiny little area behind me, I'm good. But they naturally want to get to that area so that way they can just kind of walk into the wind and check that entire swamp and the whole ridge system on the other side. So it just sets up perfect. It's so foolproof.
That's such a cool spot. You know, I just thought of this because I was just watching a short film on a muskie fisherman, like they're talking about how muskie fishermen are like their muskie are the fish of 1,000 casts, and I feel like those types of spots are like 1 in 1,000 that you
Oh,
can
yeah.
find that have all of that stuff that works out in your favor, but like you can't find those spots without putting in a ridiculous amount of time and learning those areas over a long period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely true. I found this one pretty early and got lucky, but they're few and far between that they set up like that. They really are. Because I got a bunch of other spots that I say are good spots, but that spot I can like guarantee myself to see a deer every morning. You go there, you're seeing something, whether it's a young buck or a doe, or like you're seeing something over there. And up here in the Northeast where I'm at, there isn't a huge density of deer, you know? It's not like some areas where you just sit and you know you're gonna see deer every day. Like
Yeah.
it's not like that up here. So a lot of times guys will go into the same patch of woods I hunt and I have buddies that do it. They'll hunt for a week and won't see nothing, you know? They won't see a damn thing. So
Ye-
having a spot that sets up right is good.
Talking about that, and there's been a few things you've said so far through this that's made me come to some of this conclusion about you, but tell me if I'm correct. Like, a lot of what you're doing is putting in an extraordinary amount of time into learning specific areas, and then also using that historical data to help you. You're playing the long game essentially with a lot of these bucks.
Always, yeah. Yep. I absolutely do. And what that's done now is make it so that honestly, I don't have to scout nearly as hard as I have in the past. Now I have these quadrants of woods and I know where all the best scrapes are on all these different ridges that I spent years scouring looking for the electric buck. And I learned so much other stuff in that process that now all I got to do is beeline to these community scrapes that I know exist on these ridge systems and drop a camera or just scout around right there and see if there's acorns ahead of time to know whether or not it's going to be a good spot. Drop a camera and see if there's anything worthy of hunting in there. And then I already got setups, So once you do your homework keeps working for you in the future, and then you can apply what you've learned to other spots. Like now I feel like I have the ability to look at a map and just beeline to an area that's going to have potential. Whereas before, when I was first starting, it's kind of like you're stumbling through stuff and you're just kind of learning. But now I'll say, all right, that has the same characteristics as this other spot that I have that's really good. Let me go check it. And sometimes it's a bust and sometimes it's not. But more often than not, it ends up being like a positive. Like I'll get there and I'll find what I think is going to be there,
What are some of those characteristics? Like, what are some of those things you found as consistencies in the types of places you hunt?
Traditionally, I like checking edges. I always check the southeast corner of edges first. So if there's a big clear cut in the middle of a patch of woods, I'll immediately kind of go a couple 100 yards off that southeast corner of it and start checking there, just because I figure those mature bucks that they're going to be checking some area before they go to eat or before they go to scent check does or any of that, they're going to want to be in the most favorable wind position. And with a traditional north or west wind or northwest wind, either or any of those, that's going to put that scent into either the south, the east, or the southeast corner. So I usually start there. I'll look for edges on a map or terrain features that I think are going to dump the scent, and then I'll just try to think like a deer and just say, all right, well, for the most part, the wind here is traditionally, especially that time of year, is going to be out of the north or the west or the northwest. Unless there's a storm, and I'll just start looking there, and it's hasn't failed me yet.
Yeah, so it's a lot all around like the vegetation features, and then looking at the historical wind of like in the area you're in, northwest is common, where you might find areas that might be a southwest, so then you'd be looking more at that northeast, rim of those places. And what about like specific terrain features, do you look at that as much, or do you find that to be more of depending on what those edges look like?
Yeah, no, I look for different terrain features. I really like the swamps, and I like the oak ridges. But like I was saying in the beginning, a lot of the area where I'm at is that mountain laurel. So the terrain features, they don't the deer don't necessarily need to use like a certain drainage to get up and down because they can sneak up there or whatever, or it's so thick and there's so much cover and food that they don't need to sneak the same way they would. So on top of looking at terrain features and looking at stuff to find where I think the traditional wind is going to have a buck check from or whatever, I'll also look at the leaf off technology and these apps and see where the pockets are in the laurel. So when I'm looking at an area that's blanketed in mountain laurel, when I can see through that and I can see that there's some openings in it, like, here's an area where there doesn't seem to be a lot of laurel, and it's following a drainage and it's a nice opening, which creates a great funnel. So I'll look for these openings in the sea of laurel, which turn into natural funnels for these deer too. And I'll focus on that. So the terrain features, yeah, a little bit, but I generally look for edges, and then I look for these openings in that mountain laurel where I know are going to just be natural funnels that are outside of like obvious areas that you can get to. So like some of the areas I'm hunting, there's miles of mountain laurel.
Yeah.
It's not like patches. It's like it just goes. So when you look at that blanket, if you can find those slivers within it and get to the sliver somehow, you'll see that it's like just peppered with sign, because the deer will use that as like a main artery to get around.
Well, and they feel safe in there, and it's so difficult to access to get in there that, because I remember talking to you about this a few years ago, and you told me a lot of stuff that I've used since then to learn some areas that I have with heavy mountain laurel better, and those micro openings, in the middle of it. Because even before, like, one thing that I was doing and finding, and it still seems to work in particular areas, but you'll see right at the edge of where like that mountain laurel ends, and there'll be this beautiful oak ridge or bench or whatever. It's like ladder stand, like cameras, like right on that edge, and they're probably getting photos of the same deer that are living in there, just at night as they're coming out. And I've even found, even going in just a little bit, 100 yards in, and finding some of those spots changes the whole game of whether you're able to actually see those deer in daylight versus it being in nighttime, or you might end up spooking them when you're climbing down at night, when you're out on the very, very edge.
Yeah, that's their safety. They feel really safe in there because, as you know, if you go to walk into that stuff, it's brittle and it snaps and it's loud, and you can't just slither through it very easily without making noise. So they're gonna hear you and they don't care if you hear them either. Like when I hunt these spots, I'll hear the deer way before I see them. Like I'll hear them way off in the distance. Like, oh, here comes some. They'll just be crunching through it, but. Yeah, they treat, where you said all those ladder stands are on those cameras. I look at that like that's a field edge.
Yeah.
And the laurel is like a thicket. So they're going to come out into that field edge, oak ridge or whatever, once the coast is clear and it's safe. But you'll also notice that a lot of times these laurel patches will be set up perfectly for them to know if you're in that damn ladder stand ahead of time, and some of those veins that are in the laurel, they can be moving through the laurel a couple 100 yards away from you, following one of those veins and picking up scent of everything that's on the oak ridge where all those guys are sitting in their ladder stands, and they're just not going to come out. The mature ones are not going to come out. So they're not expecting anyone to be in the laurel. So that requires like snipping some trails or figuring out how you can access some of those areas without making noise, and preparing ahead of time, doing homework and scouting and figuring out how you can get there being as minimally as invasive as possible. Because that's something else that I do too. I try to go as deep as I possibly can into those areas without disturbing it so much, you know?
Yep. What do you do you feel like, so when you're going into those areas and you're trying to find those access points, one thing that I've seen in like big Laurel pockets is that the little drains or the veins, as you were calling them, going through are some of the easier places to easy. I'm putting that in air quotations because it's still not easy. But the Laurel, is it like comes around there because like the center of that drain typically doesn't have anything growing, whether there's rocks in it or depending on the area, whatever it might be. But you can kind of get underneath it a little bit more and create a little bit more of a ceiling to work in. The problem I've found is deer also use those as travel. So like, are you looking for anything particular with accessing in there to get in there clean?
Um, I'll look for where a couple of them converge and then scout and figure out like, all right, which ones are being used mainly, which ones are not. Because a lot of times, think about if you look at a marsh somewhere and you see like a tidal marsh, and when the tide's high, all that water is coming in, and then there's these little fingers that, you know, or if you've gone fishing in areas like that, like you might go up like a little inlet brook and all of a sudden it's a dead end, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them might lead you all the way to another beaver pond or something like that, but a lot of times they just end. So I'll go into those areas and I'll do scouting enough to figure out like, okay, these ones are really being used, these ones aren't being used. And then on top of that, I'll go in there in the off season and I'll move brush out of the way and snip stuff, and I'll make it so that I can have a way in. If I can backdoor it a little bit and just kind of pop in and pop out, then
Yep.
that's the way I'll do it, because I want to get as deep as possible without disturbing it, you know? So even for example, where I killed the electric buck, that trail that I broke branches off and trimmed or moved through the Laurel to get there it's probably close to a quarter mile into the Laurel. Yeah. And it's without me prepping that ahead of time, like you're making so much noise. Although that one's a setup kind of like what you were saying before, where they'll have one of those drainage veins, right? And that was the main kind of run, and there's a huge scrape at the top of one of it, and they're always constantly kind of moving back and forth this way, but they're also coming out of those smaller little pockets and crossing and getting to that scrape however they can. That one particularly, I came in one of those from the back end of one of those inlets that I was talking about that's a dead end. It would be considered a dead end. The only time a buck would use that is if they were bedding kind of at the end of it, but not always, you know? It's a dead
Mm-hmm.
end, so they know it's just gonna lead them into a wall of Laurel.
Yep.
So what I would do is I'll figure out a way, how can I get from this access point right to that little crook?
Yep.
And I'd snip a trail and get right into there, and then not have to disturb any of the area where the deer are actually walking and moving, get up in a tree and then look into, you know, like a window looking into where they're constantly moving. So I get as close as I can without invading it or being invasive, and then keeping wind in mind too.
Yeah. And do you feel like it's funny, I was watching I watched your video the other day. I'd missed it when it came out, but a video that you did with Dan Infalt, and you know, you took him into one of those areas and he was asking about bedding. And I was, you know, I was hoping that maybe you were gonna share this, like, you know, absolute nugget as far as like, this is, you know, that this is using a singular bed. And I've found that it comes to the same thing I find with clear cuts so many times, is like there's
They're
a bedding
everywhere.
area and like they'll lay down in a bunch of different spots throughout there, and multiple deer will use that same bed, and it's very difficult when it comes to bedding.
Yeah, there's not really a science to it. We hear that there is, and I think that can apply for certain ag hunting areas in the
Mhm.
Midwest and stuff, where they're like, they're going to be right in this thicket that I made that's next to my corn. Like they're going to be all, and that doesn't apply to like the bigger woods or public land just because they don't, there's no rhyme or reason. They're just floating around nomadically and going to the good food and trying to set themselves up in the most advantageous position possible without getting picked off, you know?
And I think, it's very, very area dependent, because I've been in places that are when they're really steep, like knife ridges, and there's this point there's like, this is the only little flat spot as it curls over, leeward side. I mean, everything that you hear, like sometimes that does work out. Like I found spots where I found multiple years of sheds laying next to a bed on this point, and it was like, okay, like this makes sense. But for a lot of places, when there's many good places to lay, or like say in that Sea of Laurel, it's like they can bed, feed, everything like in the same spot, and that makes it really difficult to be able to do so.
And you, like I said from the beginning, man, you have to get in there and scout, and you have to see it, because there's only so much a map can tell you too, right?
Yep.
It can tell you that there's a little, you can see the vein on the map of like the opening in the Sea of Laurel, or the opening in the clear cut or whatever, or the main trail through the swamp. But as you know, the mature bucks traditionally aren't taking the main highway unless they have to. They're taking these little off trails that you're never going to see on a map until you get down in there. So I'll take those main arteries, and then I'll go up each of those inlets and just see what's going on up there. And more often than not, I'll find, as I go up one or two of them, you'll find some big rubs, or you'll find a big bed, and you'll know that, all right, this one here seems to be being used as a buck bedding area, whereas the other ones are just kind of, there's droppings in them or whatnot, but it's not the same. Like you have to put boots on the ground and go there and look and actually find the evidence you need to choose where you're going to set up, because it's just part of the game.
You mentioned a lot about community scrapes, and it sounds like that's a big part of your overall strategy and finding it. So tell me when you find, like, what gets you excited when it comes to scrapes, and how are you using them?
I like seeing the ones that have been used year after year. You can just tell by the way the licking branch isn't, it may not be just a small piece of a sapling coming down. It's like a arm of an old pine tree, or like you can just see the knob on it. It's been getting hammered for years. It's almost falling apart. And when I find those ones, I'll keep reattaching new branches to it to keep it alive, you know? If the small branch that they've been licking on for years is now broken and it's gone, and it's just, there's no overhanging branch anymore, I'll literally find a sapling and bend the whole thing over and tie that tree off, so give them a new one. So I look for, some guys will just set up a mock scrape wherever. They'll be like, this is a good area for mock scrape, and they set it up on a main road, and maybe that works, or a main deer trail, maybe that works. But for me, I try to find the historical community scrapes that have been used for years, and I try to set it up. I'll just reactivate it, I guess, is the best way to put it. So if I know that this is a scrape that's been used for years, you can see it's like to the dirt. And mind you, I'm in remote areas, so I know that there's not other people creating these, or it's not a mock scrape or whatever. And I'll just reactivate it. And instead of relying on all the scent products that we can buy and stuff, and some of them are good, I've used some of them, I think just the smell of fresh dirt does something to spark the curiosity of the deer. So if I find one of those community scrapes and I set up a camera on it, even if the community scrape may not be active yet in the season, or may not have been active since the year prior, if you go in there and you have like a good enough stick, and you get down to that deep, fresh, rich soil, and that scent's wafting out,
that dark dirt, that once you get down past that first layer
once you activate that dirt, is the biggest, maturest buck in the area going to immediately come in and find it? No, but a young fawn or a yearling or a doe is going to smell it, and they're going to come check it out, and they're going to piss in it. And when they do, that's going to cause the next deer that walks by to smell the piss, and then and it's just going to activate it. So
Yeah.
I'll use just ripping the ground up at these community scrapes to just spark curiosity and let them naturally apply the scent for me. So I'm not, let them do
Yeah.
their own kinks thing.
Even when I'm finding scrapes or I'm going in the summer to put cameras on them, and it's like, okay, I found this in the spring, and you see this, historical, multiple licking branches broke, whatever that you can see from years, and you go there and the ground's not typically tore up, say during the summertime. I'll tear it up then just to create that fresh dirt, because it's just, again, that curiosity, and that gets deer in general coming to hit that area, and then, eventually something comes through.
Yeah, think about it. They use that communication for them is huge. Anytime, even just them pawing for acorns, that lifts a layer of dirt, and that must permeate through the air, and they're like, it sparks their curiosity of, oh, is there somebody eating over here? Is there something going on? And I'll even do that on the way to my stands when I probably get 175 yards away from my stand. I'll, right on whatever trail I'm walking in, I'll start using my boots quietly to just kind of move some of the leaves or the dirt away and just kind of open up an area so it gets down to that fresh, rich soil again. So now my boots are coated with it. There's a little area here that's permeating and sparking curiosity, and I'll do that like every 30 yards quietly until I get to my tree, so that if anything happens to be coming downwind somewhere, they might just get a little scent of that curiosity smell, and it just makes them think maybe, oh, something's going on over there. What's going on over there? And it just gives you a little bit of cover scent,
Yeah, I like that a lot. Do you feel like you're hunting over those scrapes? Do you feel like that's where, like, in say the Sea of Laurel, it's tough to find a spot for them to scrape unless you do have some sort of a little opening there. Now, I've seen some scrapes in the thicket before of Laurel, but it seems like those little openings in there where the deer are traveling through that are congregating, that's where I've at least found a bunch of those scrapes. Do you find that to be the case, and do you hunt those?
Yeah, I do, and I don't. I do find that to be the case, but I don't. I have hunted those. I have hunted directly over the scrape. I have killed deer over scrapes, but I try to get off of the scrape a little bit. I try to put myself in the position of the buck that's going to be coming through to scent check that scrape rather than go directly to it. And how's he going to, I'll learn enough about how they travel through there, and they'll be forced to go certain areas that I'll set myself up so I'm going to be on him traveling to that scrape or trying to get downwind of it in some way. So I want to be like downwind of where he would want to be when he's downwind of the scrape, rather than setting up right on the scrape, because then I feel like if I'm 35 yards off the scrape so I can have a perfect broadside shot at a deer coming into it, and a mature buck is checking for it, he's 100 yards or 75 yards down because he can use his nose to check it without having to actually beeline to it unless something in it smells and sparks his curiosity. I want to be where he's gonna do the easy check of it, and it's gonna be less suspected. Because I think also that in general, if a mature buck is coming into a scrape, they know that their scrapes are usually in a travel corridor area, and the travel corridor is not only for deer, it's for bear, and you see coyotes on your camera and everything else. So a mature buck is gonna approach that scrape with a sense of caution in some way. They're gonna be looking for something. They're really looking for something. So if you just kind of get back a little bit, I feel like they're less likely to be really, really looking for something else. They're just kind of on their way in there, moseying in, and you just get them in a more relaxed state. A lot of the times when I've seen them come into scrapes, I've seen them just just be a little bit more. There could be another buck that if I put a scent in a scrape or pre-orbital or something like that, he might come in there thinking that that deer may be right there somewhere too. So he has to be ready for that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I try to get a little bit off it. So it just had their guards down a little bit. So that way they're a little more naturally coming in and you just have a better opportunity at a shot where he's not, scanning everything and he catches you trying to draw back or whatever. So I like having them in the most relaxed state possible.
Yeah.
And being a little bit off that scrape sometimes I think can really help with that.
Yeah. It's, being what I've seen with scrapes is, and I personally like hunting over the scrape depending on the situation and the time of year. That like middle to the end of October there, like love being right there when possible. But I'll see watching their body language, and this is something you can't really see with trail cameras because you're getting that window of the scrape, but it might be 20 yards over here, it comes out to the open. They'll just stand there inside that cover for a while. Sometimes if you're hunting, it feels like it's hours, but
forever.
They're just like, I'm like, is he think something's wrong? And it's like, a lot of times, no, that's just what he does as far as accessing it with caution.
Yeah. It's and sometimes like I was saying before, the mature deer is not going to take that main path in there. So they'll stay in that cover as long as they can. If they don't have to break that cover to investigate the scrape, they're not gonna. Like that deer that the electric buck that I chased, I got a set of sheds here. He stayed in that.
Oh my gosh. I forgot how big that thing is.
he stayed in that cover. Like he was moving through that cover so loudly, but he wasn't on the main road. He was fully comfortable in that stuff just because there's going to be there's never been danger for him where that was. Like he owned the area and it was just, he felt absolutely safe there. But I had hunted for probably that season. I knew I was going to get him at some point. I knew I'd have an opportunity, but I spent the first probably 4 hunts hunting over a scrape, like hunting. I'd cut one of those trails into one of those little crutches that led to a little inlet that led to the main thing that he would come on. And that main run had a big scrape on it. And I had set up like I normally did before, where I'd come in and I'd stop right there and I was just looking into that scrape. That scrape was probably 60 yards away, but he would, the way he would approach it, I'd have an opportunity. And I sat there a bunch and he just never came and he wasn't on the cameras and he ended up being deeper. And I had another camera that was further in, but I knew that was going to be more invasive, which I always traditionally try not to do. But as we were approaching that November 4th and I knew things were heating up, I kind of threw caution to the wind and said, all right, I'm pushing into that other camera and I'm either going to blow the spot up and he's going to come in and see me or smell me and I'm going to at least see him with my eyes in real life for once, or I'm going to have an opportunity. And that little bit of aggressiveness of like just pushing a little bit further than even my own comfortability level at the time is what made the difference. Because if I would have sat in that safety zone over that scrape, doing what I thought was right and what was safe for me to not ruin the spot or not get picked off or whatever, I would have just sat there the whole season probably and never saw him, but being willing to risk, all right, I might see him and he might just be gone. But being willing to risk it is what really made the difference, Now that I'm talking to you, thinking about it, I'm like, oh, wasn't that safe on that one? I kind of threw caution to the wind and like went all in. I was like, all right, I had to kill him. He wasn't going to let me kill him, I guess is really what it was.
He wasn't going to let his guard down enough. A deer at that age or doing anything, you had to, when the conditions were right. I mean, it sounded like, you love that time of year. It seems like they're maybe the most vulnerable. Is that accurate? Or like that's when you, at least that's when you said it killed the most around that time period, but of just pushing that little extra. Like and so I'm thinking in my head, and I always, like, when people are telling stories, I'm thinking of, like, as I'm listening to it, also things are popping up in my head as far as situations that I've been in. There's a buck that I'm currently hunting that I've pretty much got two places that I think if I'm going to kill him this year, it's going to be in one of two places. One is this giant community scrape, and I've hunted him off of it, and then I ended up missing him there, but he went right towards the scrape. Misjudged the yardage on that one. This past year, I'd shot a buck earlier, didn't realize that he had made it through, but he did the same thing again, and he would hit this scrape, and I was like, I had to quit overthinking that spot at the end of October. It's like, I need to hunt that scrape when a cold front is the end of October. It's like, that's what I need to do. But now, once November would hit, I found this small little opening inside this massive thicket, and there's a good amount of rubs around that I thought was a buck bedding area. But what I've come to learn from running a camera in that little opening last year was that it's a doe bedding area, and all those rubs are made within like a week. And that's like where he seems to be at in there. And that small little opening, like, man, my shot is going to be tight, and it is kind of risky to get in there, but there's a window that I'm like, I need to be there for 3 days in that time period and try it.
Yeah, and it's cool that you said that too. That you have the two spots you're going to kill him. I felt the same way with that deer. I had that spot where I did kill him, but I had an alternate spot that was probably 1,000 yards away that had the equal potential as this one. So my theory was, with me pushing in hard on him, was that if I blow him out of here, he's just going to go to that other spot where he's comfortable in daylight, which is like 1,000 yards away. And I have that set up to hunt too. So if I go in here and I don't get an opportunity and I blow him out of here, it's not like I didn't have a backup plan. It's not like he's just gone out of my dreams forever. I had an alternate already where he was in daytime. So the research and the scouting had me have two spots at least that I was like, all right, he's comfortable on different days in both of these spots at daylight. Like, if I'm not getting him here, some days I'll get him here at the same time. So he's comfortable in both of these spots. So I was like, all right, if I blow this one up, I'm going to go in and blow this spot up. And if I do, it's not like it's game over. Now I've taken this one off the table. So now it's like, all right, here we go.
Decision's easy now.
yeah, exactly. But I never had to do it, so it was awesome. So sometimes you have to push the envelope. Like, don't be reckless, but once you get to that final step, don't let the story be, I almost got him, I was right there, I had pictures of him, 500 yards away all day. He just never came in. Go get him, like, you got him.
I talk with my cousin Mason, who's an absolute killer, and he picks out singular deer and seems to kill them every year. And like, when talking with him about some of this stuff, he's been under the impression it's worked for him so many times that, like, when the conditions are right and you feel confident, there's sometimes that there are things that it's just going to be a risk. That's all there is to it, whether it's access. He's like, if I know I got to be there and there's no way, like, and I have to give up a little bit, like, that is what it is. Sometimes I got to, push that. It's really difficult to get everything to work. But like you said, there's a difference between being aggressive and reckless when it comes to, it's not just being like, oh, I know it's a good spot, screw it, I'm just going to walk the easiest way in that makes the most sense for me and throw every caution to the wind. But the whole thing about, like, you were talking about those multiple spots, and so was I, like, learning areas over time. And this is one of those places that I have so much history with, not just with this deer, just previous deer. And it seems like the biggest deer in the area seem to do similar things. Like, they take over habits and trends with it. And you were mentioning about not needing to scout as much anymore. And that's kind of how I am with this area. Now, I put a bunch of time in this spring, but literally almost all of it was in two sections that were like 400 yards, and I was just picking trees and access
Yeah.
for the wind. And it was just like, I went in there in the spring and I brought all my climbing sticks and I was climbing to see what I could see from these spots. Cause I've done it before of like, tree looks good from the ground. I mark it, I do it, which is all good. Then I get in there and it's like, man,
and you're like,
I
how
can't.
am I going to make the shot? Yeah.
It'd be like, oh, actually, I need to be lower because all these hemlock branches, I need to be just under that canopy so I can actually shoot more than 4 yards to be able to get in there. And it's, as you progress, like I feel like when I go to a new area, like I'm covering ground, I'm doing as much as I can to learn. And then as you start to fine tune, I'm spending more time in a smaller area, really trying to get that right.
Yep. Nope. That makes absolute sense, man. And yeah, I think that once you put in your homework and if you've done it enough, you're not gonna have to relearn that same area. And I learned that there was another deer that I have a bunch of pictures of and videos that there was this young, like little four pointer or 8-pointer that used to follow the electric buck around. When I first started getting consistent pictures of him a couple years before I killed him, I had this one deer that like at 2 a.m, the electric buck would come through, and then on multiple cameras, like a minute later would come this little stinky buck, you know? But that deer ended up becoming a monster, a beast. Like, and I found I got like 3 years worth of his sheds. A dude unfortunately killed him last year, but I was confident that I was going to kill him from the same tree that I killed the electric buck from, because he literally like learned from him. He would follow him around everywhere. Yeah. I don't know if I showed you these sheds, Bo, but these are.
What? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry for everyone listening to me just saying wow, but that's just what I keep saying. That he almost has like a second main beam inside of that first one, just a web of.
And then his other side is this.
Oh, it's just a 3 on the other side.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
But when he got killed, he was like this, but an 8-point. But just, I mean, once again, these are really like this is probably 14 or 15 inches, but real massive too.
Super massive.
But yeah, this one, I think he damaged it. I think he hit something in the Laurel early on when he was maybe March, April, May, something like that. And then this created some sort of wound that the rest of the antler had to grow around. When they scored this thing, they like cheated me on the score. They like didn't have time to do it correctly, because for the mass measurements, you would go around here, right?
Yeah.
But in order to do it correctly, you kind of got to go up and down these valleys and stuff, and they didn't do it, you know.
They just sort of tape around the circumference of the.
This still was a 109-inch antler by itself.
What?
Just this. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that is insane.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of character and stuff.
It kind of looks like a coral reef or something. Like
this thing weighs like 4 pounds. Like this thing is big as hell. It's a mass.
If he shed his other side first, I mean, I would assume that he didn't drop the other side too far away. I can't imagine walking around with a 4-pound weight hanging off the one side of your head. But
yeah, I don't know which one he dropped first. My buddy had found this side probably a week before, and it was probably about 500 yards away.
Really? I would have expected those.
I would have thought it would have been right next to it.
Yeah.
I mean, we scoured that area once he found that one, looking for the other side, and we didn't find it. I randomly stumbled across it trying to go into the woods one day to go drop a camera. I literally was in like a random, just cutting through, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Yeah. So it was crazy, but it's funny how those mature deer. You know, you'll see, once again, it's that historical data, right? If you know an area really well and you spend a lot of time in there year after year after year, you get excited about the up and comers, you know, because I know that the genetics are there, and I know that I've already killed several mature deer in some of these spots, which tells me that the spots there's a reason that the mature deer are in those spots. They're tried and true. And if I'm the only threat predator-wise that's in there and I'm only taking mature bucks, it's still safe for them because they're not, you know, a 2 and 3-year-old isn't having an encounter with me that's negative.
Yeah. You gotta start, you know, really make them more comfortable with you. I don't know what that is. Maybe give them some pets. You know, you got when they're real young, you gotta,
Yeah, I think being in there a lot, I really think that they almost get used to you.
like, oh, hey, what's up, Pat?
Yeah, I think they're like, "Oh, I smelled this guy before. He's always in here. I don't know what the hell he's doing." But
Yeah. That's that crazy guy. He's always just coming up through the sea of Laurel. I don't know what the heck
yeah,
he's doing.
he's
Nice
just in
dude.
here. He's doing. I actually just got a not to circle back. We'll put it on the screen, but
Yeah.
Pat sent me the code now.
Oh, it is? Okay.
EMW25. Just so you know.
Oh, EMW. Wow, I was completely off. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Yeah. I'll put a note in there to have that edited. But nice. Yeah, I gave out the wrong code to multiple people then. It's all right. And
I have them make both of them work. So
okay. Well, sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. But yeah, as far as those deer, like growing up and seeing it, and that's like, man, trail cameras are so fun to me because like I'm rarely, at least me personally, I'm rarely using a lot of cameras for real time data. It's more for that historical side of it. But I just love seeing and learning from, especially if you got them on video and they're on a scrape and watching their behaviors and like, just, man, it's so much fun.
That's what I was just going to ask you if you keep yours on video, because you learn so much more from having it on video than getting a still picture. And it's incredible. Like you might get a picture of a buck looking like he's coming in and you're like, oh, he's coming from here and he's going that way. But then on the video, he like comes in, hits the scrape, and then he goes back out that way.
Yeah.
Or whatever the behavior is. He might just come in there and he's looking around and he gets out. Like it changes it so much when you see the behavior of them. And then you can also understand their demeanor. Like how is he approaching this? Is he relaxed? Is he not relaxed? Is he looking for something? With the videos too, something strange that I've learned, and I don't know if you've ever saw this, but I have so many cameras on a bunch of different scrapes. I found that a couple scrapes in my area, the mature doe would be the one to activate the scrape. I'm sorry, the mature doe would come in after the scrape was activated by like a mature buck. So there'd be no does on it. I'd activate the scrape. I'll get a couple young bucks, a couple stragglers. But then as soon as the electric buck, for example, or a mature buck comes in and pees in that scrape, within a day or two, I get doe coming in there, like really curious and bristled up almost and like looking around, and then they pee in the scrape. It's almost like they're like, oh yeah, like the big ballers in town.
Yeah.
Let me let them know I want a drink. Like it's funny. And on the video, I have a couple different scrapes where I've seen that happen, where once a mature buck goes in there and activates it, I'll get a doe coming in there and being like, yep, I'm here.
Yeah, when sugar daddy comes into town, it's like, all right.
Yeah.
It's funny. I honestly have never paid attention to that, but I'm in the process of going.
Now, yeah.
I am, because I'm in the process of going through all of my 2025 data and kind of going through it and logging it on the SD card. I put it on my computer and I'm going through it. Well, you filmed my presentation at Huntstock last year when I talked about it. So I'm in the process of doing that. I'm going to look at it because I think, so here's something that I found myself even doing when cell cameras became more obtainable and they worked in more areas with getting better connection. I was like, oh, to save on batteries, I'll keep it on photo, even though I ran video forever. And then I was like, I was missing such a main thing. So now, and it's like, it really doesn't take much more battery. And I only request video, whatever, but I always go through that. I talk to so many people that are just like looking on the app, whatever, say it's the Reveal app or whatever. And it's like, they just look at their photos, but I still think there's such an advantage to popping that SD card in your computer after the season or whatever and going through each of those videos. How many times do I get like you see a doe on your camera, but then that 15, 20 seconds after, here comes that buck coming through.
Yep,
Or in the
absolutely.
background, he's standing there, but you're looking on your little phone screen. You're like, oh, doe, going through, but he's way back, in that
Yep.
background, in those shadows. And it's like,
There's so much more you learn. Yeah, I've had that happen so many times too, where it's like, you just get the flash of the photo of a deer running by, you have no clue what it is, you turn into video, and it's like a buck train, like, all of them are coming, and one stops at the camera and is looking one way or the other, and then takes, like, there's so much of an advantage with the video stuff, man. I wish the video would last longer sometimes,
Yeah. And it is such a time-consuming thing to be able to do. I mean, like you, I run a ton of cameras, and it's like it takes me weeks of like going. I'll do a couple SD cards a night, pretty much is what I do, and I'll go through it to go through all that data. But I've found the information I get from that is just outweighs anything. Like it's so valuable.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, this technology is, I have a lot of old timers that I talk to and hang out with and learn from. And there's man, I need my water now. There's two schools of thought with it. Some people look at it like it's an unfair advantage, right? It changes whether or not is it still fair chase if you're using cameras to do it. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have been able to get that story with the electric buck without technology. I probably wouldn't have been able to get it done in the same way, because you just wouldn't be able to have all that data and all those data points to be able to make it happen. But when you're using it the way that you and I are talking about using it, to really like stack data up over years and research, and it's different than what people think. Some people assume you have a camera out in the woods, you get a picture of a deer, and then you go into the woods and you kill that deer. And it's like, I've never done that. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
by the time you get that picture and wherever I'm at, like, good luck. Like,
yeah.
you're not gonna see that deer. Like, you're just not, but technology has made hunting, it's just different now, like, think of our fathers and grandfathers. They would just go out, have to use the sign, figure it out, and you got what you got. Now we have this data and these apps and these maps, and we can be selective, which I don't know if it's a good or bad thing yet. I like it, but it is, we're at a unique juncture in evolution where we're using technology to this level for one of the most primitive acts a human could do.
It is funny when you think of it, and I think there's definitely so many things that scare me with technology, but I think, like, I don't know, everyone's got different morals or ethics when it comes to it, but I just try to look at it like, I mean, I feel like that data from cameras has helped me so much. So when I do go to a different state, say like I went to Ohio this year, I didn't have cameras in the places but learning from those cameras in other places helped me get into a position to kill a buck. Iowa, same situation. It's like it helps you. It can help you be a better woodsman, and help learn some of that stuff and create it. And I do believe that's why most states have bigger bucks than they did in the past, outside of probably like the actual traditional big buck states, because I think that ends up, especially bait states, because it seems like, I'm not going to go down that whole rabbit hole, but it seems like then, really nice 3-year-olds will get shot more because they can get them on their camera or whatever. But I have not found a situation like you said where I could go in, use a camera, go in, shoot the buck. It's just not
where I hunt is far away and it's thick and it's just not practical to use it for that mean, it can help you in the sense that, okay, I know that this buck is with this doe in this area, and he's probably going to be here for a couple of days. So in that regard, yes, it's an advantage, because you would never know that he's in this corner of the swamp with a doe without that technology, or unless you got there. So in regards to that, I can see it, but just in general. But I hardly ever, like, to me, it's really collecting the data and understanding, like, the nuance of how they operate. And that's what's fascinating to me, is just like
Mm-hmm.
how adapted they are to their environment. It's so crazy how dialed in they are. And that's probably the coolest thing about hunting too, right? Like, that's something that I share when I talk to anybody who is a hunter, or even more so people that don't hunt, when I try to explain that to them, that out of all the stuff we do in our day-to-day life, the reason that we are so obsessed and we enjoy and love the outdoors and hunting is because it's probably the one aspect of our life where you actually are tapped into being a human, like a human at its core, in the primal sense of the animalistic nature of being a human. Like, all of those senses become heightened. Like, we use our ears and our eyes and our smell and our touch daily for stuff within this modern world. But when you're in a tree and it's dark and your ears are adjusting to every little branch and creak that's happening around you, and your eyes are super focused on any bit of movement, there's something that awakens within you, that you're like, I'm an alpha. Like, like, I'm at the top of this food chain, as long as no Bengal tigers are in here.
Yeah, how about, like, when you say you're going through that Laurel, and you're going through there and you're trying to be quiet, and you get to your tree, you slip up in there and you get in quiet. Talk about the best feeling. Like,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, I'm the man. Like, I did this.
Yeah. You slithered in there, and then you pretty quickly that you did the right thing too. Like, you'll hear them moving like a half an hour later somewhere, and you're like, they got no clue I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
But just watching the world wake up, man, I really feel like it's something everyone, even if you're not a hunter, like, I have buddies that don't hunt at all, that, like, I want them to experience that. Like, I want them to just, most people wake up and maybe they're up before the sun and they look out their window and they see, like, a bird land on the branch and they're like, oh, it's beautiful. But when you're immersed in the wilderness and you're waking up as part of the fabric of, like, a forest, it's just it's a different feeling. And I think that that's really what we're all addicted to, is that, like, you're just like, this is why I'm really here for, It's great.
Oh man, I could not have said that any better. I was at a wedding over the weekend, and I'd met this guy who was my cousin who got married, good friend, and was his roommate when he was in the military and all this stuff. And he lived in inner cities like his whole life, like in the city. And he had gave a speech at the wedding, and he was talking about, his redneck friend that, he was trying to, how did he put it? Pretty much make him fit in with, like, the rest of society and dress to go to nice places. He's going through all these things. And so later in the evening, I'd met him there, and we just started talking. And then, like, the shuttle ride back to the hotel at the end of the night was like 25 minutes or so. So we were sitting next to each other just talking, and he was asking me all these questions about hunting and all this stuff at the end of it. And he's like, man, like, that sounds awesome, but nothing I ever want to do. He's like, I like the city. And I was like, hey, that is totally fine
good for
too.
me.
Yeah, that is totally fine. I said but he's like, he was so interested in it, and it's just like, he's like,
it's not my cup of tea.
Not my cup of tea. And I said, I respect that just as much.
There's different sects of humans, right? There's, like, some of us are builders, some of us are explorers, some of us are hunters, gatherers, all that. And yeah, man, I don't know. I'm happy to be in the position I'm in, man. I love that stuff.
Yeah, you and we definitely don't have time to get into a ton of it, but I've learned from getting to know you through the years, and then also talking to the other Pat over at Huntstock, that, like, I feel like it's in your nature to have this obsessive thing. I mean, you go out looking for, was it Native American artifacts and things?
Yeah, and I metal detect too.
Yeah,
bro. Like,
metal
the
detecting,
coins and stuff I find, and then I wear this every day as, like, a reminder. I found this. It's called a gorget. It's a Native American pendant. The hole was already in it. It's a stone that's just shaped like that with the hole already in it. And, some hunter gatherer thousands of years ago was probably wearing that thing. Either that or it was like an anal bead or something. But either way, I'm wearing it like it's I'm wearing it for that purpose. But
yeah, he's laughing every day.
It's just like some dude's ass wipe on my neck, dude. No, they're gorgets. Like they would have traditionally, supposedly worn them the same way I'm wearing it. Some person back then. So I wear it as like a reminder of like that innate human nature, that purity of like human existence and hunting and gathering and just, I definitely get overly obsessed with anything that I get involved in. Like if I like something, I research it to the depths of, the deepest portions of it and take it to the end of the earth, so
yeah,
I enjoy it. It's fun. It's the same thing as hunting, man. You start, it comes down to exploring. Like we all just love to explore and just find new stuff and have new experiences and just keep pushing forward, man. I live for it. And as I know you do too.
It gives life so much, it's one of life's purposes to just like have those things that you're so focused on. Like when I'm walking to that tree and I'm trying to slip in quiet and I'm going through, there's not another thing on my mind while I'm doing it. If it is, I'm probably going to snap that stick. But like, I just focusing, going through it. And it's like, there's not anything else I can think of where I don't have a million other things on my mind. And like, I can just be fully immersed in that environment, feeling it, just feeling that wind.
You can be like, that's it. You just get to be. That's it. That's the beauty of it.
Man,
it's great.
It is definitely so awesome. But right before we end this one here, Pat, because I am going to let you go. I know you have a busy day, but the buck that you shot last year, I don't remember if I saw a picture of it. Do you have that deer?
Yeah, I got one. I'll send it to you too, but I'll give you a quick little glimpse here. Yeah, no, he was a beast, and I didn't really. This is a cool one too because I really didn't have too much history with him per se. I didn't really know exactly.
Oh my gosh,
who it was or what it was. I had a couple of pictures of him. But yeah, let me find another one here. But he's another stud.
Man, that is a huge frame, split G3 on him. What a cool deer.
Yeah, super cool. And no clue that it even existed out there. And here, look at the background there. You can tell the environment that he lived in.
Absolute thick Laurel jungle.
Oh yeah. I wonder if I got that. I'll show you. See if I can pull this up. This will have you laughing. It was so far out in the middle of these woods, and I'll send you this video too, that by the time I got him, my buddy and I decided to just hoist him up in a tree. Because it was going to be too much of a hike to get him out of there,
Oh my, the body on him too.
Oh yeah, he was like 220.
Oh.
Yeah, but look at the Laurel in the middle of just nowhere there,
Yeah, trying to drag anything through that should just not it's just not possible.
Nope. No, so yeah, man. So we had him out there, and then we it was funny. There's a lot of coyotes and stuff in the area too. So I'd shot him twice. Like I was sitting in this tree, and then it's funny. So I got a video of me like taking a leak out of the tree. So like, get that out of here. Like, is that a problem or not? Like, definitely wasn't. No. At least this day anyway. Because if your wind's good, your wind's good. So it's like, it doesn't matter. You like do whatever you want. But yeah, the deer ends up coming in, and I got like once again through the Laurel, calm as ever because of the way I'm set up. and he's cool. He comes in, he ends up giving me like a 30-yard shot, and I think I like smoked him. Like boom, he hops, he does the mule kick, he spins around, he runs like 40 yards, and he's just standing there looking around, and I'm like, all right, 3, 2, 1, he's gonna drop any second here. Like, let's go. And then he started kind of walking and almost to a gallop. So I hit him with another one, and I left him after that point because I was kind of like, I was baffled because it was a chip shot. It was like a 30-yard shot, and I'm like, yeah, I saw it hit right behind the shoulder. Like he should have just fell over, but I was like, I don't know what happened. But I waited until late in the day before I went into the Laurel, because the direction where he headed, it's easy to lose a deer in the Laurel. Like if he goes in there and he happens to like the wound clogs up a little bit and there's no blood on the leaves or anything, like you don't have the advantage of like using binos and looking out over an oak flat ridge and being like, there he is, I see white belly. Like the Laurel's 7 feet high in some areas. If he just hops through some of it and dies in like a thicket that's not on one of those little veins, like you literally will never find him ever. So I gave it a lot of time, and it ended up being the afternoon. That's why we strung him up like that by the time I went in there. But I realized once I got to him that he did die immediately, like right after that last shot. He was dead right there. I didn't have to go far. I just didn't want to push him in and lose him, because we've had that happen. But once we put him up, we took a bunch of we had our headlamps and we put them on like flash mode, and we like left that on the deer. And then I also under the deer, once he was hung up, I took the broadheads that were in him still from the arrows, and I put them facing up on the ground in case a coyote came in there and tried to grab him. They would have went in there, and they put a camera on it and stuff too. They were fine.
That's awesome.
But it was funny. But once again, it makes it an adventure, like you're with one of your buddies and you guys are like, it just made it different. It's like, how often do you in some big woods decide to like leave the deer overnight because it's cold enough, and put it way up in a tree, and
so the coyotes don't get it, and it's like, that is.
And then you're stressed all night, and you're like, and then first thing in the morning you're in there. I went in with like a convoy of a bunch of a couple of my buddies and some dudes that I had met at this gym near me too, that were like younger hunters, and that was a cool process too, because I think that they didn't realize how much of a psychopath I was until like we went in to go get the deer. And luckily I have like a friend that allowed me to like drive my truck in the gate, because this particular patch of woods, you can't drive vehicles in there unless it's like an emergency vehicle or something. But when I get deer really far out like that, the dude's been cool enough where he's like, all right, I'll let you drive in to get it, but that's it, and then get out. So these young dudes went with me, and they realized that it's like a mile plus drive in, and then we walked for like another mile through like this trail that I cut through the Laurel, and then we get to the deer and got to drag it out. And they were like, oh, that's why you're successful every year. And it's like, I think they realized like, oh crap, like I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah. That's that whole, I think it takes seeing that and being there to appreciate it as much. You can hear a story talking about something being a couple miles in or whatever, but till you walk in those boots, like it's a whole different thing.
It's cool. My oldest son was there too, and one of his buddies, and both of my sons I've introduced to hunting early and to scouting and shed hunting and stuff, but they haven't got the bug like that. And part of that I think is because during the time when they were in those younger years where they could have got the bug, I wasn't going to like the Maine hunting cabin tradition lifestyle that I had. And I was in this obsessive phase with hunting the electric buck too. So when I would bring my sons with me to scout or to go shed hunting, I think I burnt them out, because it wasn't like I gave them a little dose of like, hey, we're going to go in for an hour and here's a scrape. It'd be like, dude, pack a sandwich. We'll be back at nightfall. And it's like 6 a.m., So I think but it's cool now to see him kind of circling. Like he was out shooting a bow yesterday, and like he actually does the audio at Huntstock, so he's like learning, and now he's
Nice.
starting to get into it. So I'm excited to see how he like if it catches on for him, because as you said with your buddy from the wedding, like it's not for everybody. Some people are like, it sounds super cool,
Mhm.
but I'm not doing it. You know, like skydiving for me, it sounds awesome, but you're not getting me to jump out of a plane.
No, it's my dad. He was asked a question that the Southern Outdoorsman guys had come and interviewed me and my dad last year, and they were asking him about like parenting and like with me as far as like how I became as obsessed as he was with it. And like normally you see people that, fathers are super obsessed and the kid doesn't because of that. And I think like my dad, he was just, I think when I was younger, I hated it at one point because he was so like that. And I kind of wasn't as serious for a little bit. And then it just became to like just me seeing him do that, and then all of a sudden, like I don't know if
It
it's just
clicked.
in my blood or what, but then all of a sudden I wanted to do it. And then I remember when he would help me out at first, like especially when I was in college, at the beginning of college, and I wasn't home very much or I couldn't get out as much, he would like help me with spots and things. And then it got to a point where he was like, all right, you're done, you got to find your own spots. It's time to get kicked out,
Kick the
kicked
bird out
the
of the nest.
Yep.
Like, spread your wings, buddy.
I gotta say I wasn't happy at that time, but I'm glad that he did it that way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. That's what makes it so good. It's just something that just it gets passed on. It's in your blood. It's in our blood as humans, but it's in your blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's passed down from my dad to me, and then same thing for you. Yeah, it's just it's incredible. I think I'll show you at Huntstock too, but I have a cool story that my older, there's an old picture of like dad and grandpa at the
That's
old thing,
awesome.
old in Maine. But my older brother and I years ago, and my father before he passed, he would always say like, I'm gonna come back as a big buck. Don't shoot me. He'd say it as like a joke, but
Yeah.
probably 10 or 15 years ago now, me and my brother, I took my brother out to, when I just discovered this area that I hunt so hard now, I took my brother with me, and he's my older brother, and I took him to this spot, and I was like, all right, stand here. Last weekend I came in here and I jumped 2 bucks out, whatever. So I have him go to this spot in this swamp. I do the same thing I did a couple days before, and sure enough, 2 deer come running out. This is the last day of the season. And one of them's a good buck. He shoots, boom, I hear it, muzzle loader. I go over to him and he's like, I shot a good one. And he's like, there was another one with it. So I like sneak around and go all the way around this ridge and go to wait for, see if I can catch up with the other one. And I get over there and I'm waiting on this run thinking something might come through, and my brother's tracking the wounded deer that he shot. Out of nowhere, all of a sudden, I hear some movement, and here comes this beautiful big buck, and I drop it in its tracks, and I go up to it. And I remember after I shot it, and it's screwed up to say, but as I walked up to it, I noticed like the last breath that it took reminded me of like when my father passed, right? So I thought in my head, I'm like, oh crap, he like, it was just subtle for a second. I was like, oh, me and my brother both got this deer together, and it's like, that was just weird. A week later, like I took a picture of the deer on the ground, and it had 1 rack too. So that's another thing. Like it was missing a side of his antler. So the next day we go back and we spent the whole day, never found it. And then at the last 2 minutes, of the day, we're sitting down having water, and my brother looks over, and after we've done probably 10 miles, and he's like, holy shit, there it is. And so we found it. So we were able to put it together. But a week later, I'm looking through my photos, and this is an old grainy photo. This is a picture of the deer on the ground, right?
Yep.
Let's see if we can show this to the home. And I noticed on this section right here, I don't know if you can see in this section here, it kind of looks like a face a little bit.
Yeah.
But
you can see the
right
eyes
there.
and the nose and the.
So here's like a classic picture in my family of my dad from that period that like is like the same. if you put them side by side, it like fits right into the spot. So it like when I discovered that, it like literally gave me the chills because I'm like, and that like weird whatever that like that's just in his fur. It's like that's just
Yeah.
it's just the shadows in the fur.
Yeah.
It's like for no reason.
Dude,
So
that is wild.
it's like I mean it's probably nothing, but it's still like weird, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I would think the exact same way that you are with it, and truly believe that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely.
But you
did too.
didn't listen to him. You weren't supposed to shoot him.
I know. Well, I didn't know till after. I was like, "Oh shit, that was you."
Should have made himself more known.
Yeah, dude, let us know next time. But yeah, it was cool because it was a great experience. But it was still, I mean, it had to happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and being there with your older brother and having that, like,
it's like superstition stuff, but it's super weird. Like, what are
Yeah.
the chances of that? Like, when I say, like, I walked up to it after I shot it, like, I saw it take his last breath, and it literally was reminiscent of, like, once when my dad passed. I was like, it's like, that was weird. Why'd I get that feeling? You know, like, that's so weird. And then, and the deer was probably 6, 7 years old, and at that point, it had been, like, 6 or 7 years since my dad passed, so, like, everything, the stars all lined up.
Man, that
You know,
is crazy.
Yeah, but I think with anything, once you're obsessed with something and you're really that deep into it and you're looking for stuff, you find it, you know, like same way you look in the clouds, if you look for something, you can see it, you know? So when you become obsessed with hunting and scouting and deer hunting and everything, and it's part of your blood and you live it and breathe it, you'll start, stuff will just fall into place.
It's a completely different situation, but similarly, it's like if you're going to buy, like when I needed to buy a new truck a few years ago, and I started looking at Toyota Tundras, and like I never really noticed many of them on the road at that time, but then all of a sudden it was like the color I was looking for, like the model, like all of a sudden I'd see them everywhere, and so I agree with you on that.
Yeah, yeah.
No, man, I love, like I said, there's so much more. We'll have to definitely do this again, but like I love when I met you and talked to you from the very beginning, I was like, this guy's a little bit nuts, which is like most of the people that are good at something, they put in a ridiculous amount of work to get good at something because they obsess over it and they go through it, and it's like so easy to say that, so hard to do, and there's very, very few people that can do that successfully, and so I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come here and, you know, help share some of the stuff with the listeners, because man, this episode was gold. And I get that a lot from people of like, I don't know what to do as far as like everywhere I hunt's all Laurel. There's not patches. There's not these things. And like you were one of the first people that I had met that had done it consistently in those types of places. And there's so much to pull from that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I live in that stuff, man. I love it. And it's good. Hopefully we can help a couple guys out, and then we can hear some of their stories about their successes with it. So
yeah. You need a new camo pattern that's just mountain laurel. Like that's
I know.
that's your camo pattern. Get someone to do that.
I feel like you don't even need it. The amount of times that the bucks don't even like look up, they're in it. They're like covered, so they feel like they're walking around with an umbrella, man. You don't even need anything.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, everyone listening, make sure you go get signed up, get some tickets, come to Huntstock, come hang out, myself and Pat, and be there. I'm really looking forward to it, man. I haven't booked a place to stay yet. I got to do that. This reminds me I need to get on it.
Get on it soon.
I know. And I'm always late on that, and then end up not where I need to be, but definitely going to do that. And you can also camp there, correct? Right?
Yep. Yep.
You know,
Yeah, that's one of the cool things and unique things about Huntstock too, is that you can, people camp for the entire time, so you get to share camp with some of your favorite celebrity hunters or YouTube or podcast people like yourself, and just really take in the experience, because we designed it so that it's not like your typical trade show. Your typical trade show, people go in, you pay your fee, you do a loop, you buy whatever it is you might be looking for, and you get out of there. We set it up so that like you really don't want to leave, because you're being entertained the whole time, and there's all these interactive experiences, and you can go do the 3D archery course, or there's a deer butchering seminar happening over here, and then now this guy's doing a tracking seminar with the dog, and then all of a sudden there's this guy's on stage here, and this live podcast is happening on another stage, and then the day's winding down. Now there's live music and the bars are open, and it just is like a giant deer camp festival
yeah,
reunion. It's like a reunion of the soul, man. We enjoy it. We love being able to be a place where we can celebrate our tradition. Like that's really what it is. It's a celebration of like the deep rooted tradition of hunting. It's not a salesy, hey, come here and you can gear up there for the season. But it's not salesy like that. There's nobody there trying to sell you solar panels or new siding for your house or insurance or new Cabela's club card or any of that stuff. It's really just good conversations and just celebrating the tradition. So we love it.
And I've thought about doing the camping route, but I thought of someone that I really don't want people to have to deal with, like me starting to smell that I wouldn't care if I'm on a hunt out west.
We got showers there, bro.
You got showers there?
We got shower trucks, bro. You're good. We got shower trucks.
Dang. Well, maybe I will stay in my rooftop tent. I don't know. I'll look at the Airbnb options. If not, then I'll just sleep in my truck.
You might. I mean, if you're comfortable, like you'd be all good. Like we literally got shower tents, and our RV has a shower in it too. So like you're good.
It's good to know.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Is there anywhere else that you want to direct people to follow along or check things out?
Yeah, well, I have an Instagram that I don't use as much as I should, but it's a Hunter Gatherer Evolved. It's Hunter_Gatherer _Evolved, and there is a bunch of videos and pictures of some of the and little videos of the adventures that I go on with all this stuff that I'm doing. So
awesome.
You can check out some of that. And besides that, make sure you guys grab some tickets for Huntstock. The code, we'll put both of them in there, but the official code is EMW25 for 25% off, which is unheard of. So I don't know. That's good.
Guess you're special listening to the podcast. So
if you got this far, see you there.
Come join us and give Pat a follow. I'll put all the links in the show notes below so you guys can click and find that easily and make sure everything's accurate. But man, I appreciate you coming on, and
I appreciate you having me, man. I'm excited.
Hanging out, dude. So
cool.
Awesome.
Cool, man.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. We will talk to you guys next week. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.